Welcome back to the program. While the economy is tough, food prices are soaring, and there's constant pressure to have more, even though we have less to work with. Well, enter Johnny McCoy, author of Miserly Mums, Living Well on Less in a Tough Economy, and the cookbook Healthy Meals for Less, great tasting simple recipes under $1 a serving. Her money-saving strategies allowed her family to go from 2 incomes to 1 while living in one of the most expensive locations in America. Johnny's 11 miserly guidelines are completely practical and easy to do, and they could save you thousands of dollars a year. Johnny McCoy is one of the leading experts on shopping and frugal living, a versatile author, shopping expert, and public speaker. Johnny has been helping increase the shopping power of people for 20 years. She has been featured in Good Housekeeping, Family Circle, as well as other magazines, and has appeared on Dr. Laura and Focus on the Family. Her goal is to help people save money, not just on food, but on just about everything from clothing, cars, entertainment, vacations, and she hopes that many will be able to afford to cut back on working hours or quit altogether in order to spend more time with her family and with your family. And that's exactly what she has done. And joining me on the phone line right now is Johnny McCoy. Johnny, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me today.
Well, this is, I had a chance, my wife and I had a chance to go over the book on the weekend, and we've already benefited from it, Johnny.
Awesome. Well, tell me, what did you implement already?
Well, my wife went shopping, and she came home with all these groceries, and I asked, how much did that cost you? And she told me, and I says, you've got to be kidding. It was a lot for a lot less because of some of the tips that you have in your book.
Oh, I'm so glad that they helped you guys. That's great.
Well, let's talk about this being frugal versus being cheap. Let's look at the difference between those two words first, Johnny.
Well, I have a real issue with the word cheap because to me they are two completely different mindsets. I was raised in a really affluent family overseas that included servants and world travel, and had a really good job at Apple Computer for many years. And so being able to enjoy myself and live well was just a part of who I was. And I know one of the biggest fears I had about cutting our spending in half was I would join the world of people who I thought were what I'd call cheap, who really, didn't tip waiters because that you were trying to save money, or kind of dressed frumpily and never had fun and had a kind of a woe is me attitude. And I was like, I don't want to be one of those people. And so when I sought out to live on less, I still wanted to make sure that we had fun, that we had a great attitude, that we looked great, that we always made sure we tipped waiters appropriately, and all of the things that I had, in this box called cheap that I was not going to be a part of. And we were able to do that. And so I've really tried to express to other people that just because you live on less does not mean that you're cheap.
Interesting, because that's sort of the connotation, right? It's like, oh, you're giving up so much. All you do is you're eating rice and beans all the time. You never go out. Your kids are dressed kind of, like you said, frumpily and holes in the clothes and all that kind of stuff. But that's not the case.
It is not the case. And yes, I've been doing this for 19 years now, and I have talked to so many different women and received so many letters, and I have heard it, right and left. I'm not going to read your book because I don't believe in greasy, starchy food. Or, how could you deprive your children like this and raise them this way? And it's just been an amazing perspective that people have on what living on less means. And so I've really tried to educate people that it doesn't have to mean that. And actually, that's the whole reason the cookbook was written, was to deal with the people who've written saying, greasy, starchy food isn't what I want. And I'm like, well, it's not what I eat either. So here, let me share, 200 of our family's personal recipes with you with a nutritional chart to go with it so that you can see what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is good. Now let's get down to the basics here, because let's look at living on less and what it does mean. First of all, and I couldn't believe this when I read this in your book, but tell everybody how much you spend. First of all, you have a family of 2 children, right, and a husband?
Right.
Okay.
4 of us.
How much do you spend on food a week, Johnny?
Okay, well, we have to go back because the book is talking historically, so I do have to preface the time frame.
Okay, all right. Okay, put us in that time frame.
Okay. We started in the mid '90s doing this, and now remember, we were living in the San Francisco Bay Area, so everything is more expensive anyway.
Yep.
But it was the mid '90s, and there were 4 of us, and our grocery bill, and this included diapers, shampoo, paper products, everything was $40 a week.
$40.
$40 a week. Yeah. Now that is, it's almost impossible to do that now, but still, even then, that was like, oh my gosh, you're kidding.
Okay. So what during that time, what did you eat?
Well, like I said, everyone says that, oh, greasy, starchy food. No way. No, it's not. I ate the same way that everyone else did. It's really how you shop and how you prepare it. Those are the 2 places that you're going to save your money. So I can still have, boneless, skinless chicken breasts and steamed broccoli and whole wheat rice. It's like it doesn't change the menu as much as it changes who makes it and where you bought it.
Well, it's interesting you say in the book that you should plan your meals based on the sales.
Right. That is the hugest savings that any one person can have. And if they go away with just one thing from your interview today, I'd have to say, if you take the sale flyers that the grocery stores are having, on the front and on the back are usually meat and produce, and they're usually losing money on those items to attract you into the store. So if you take those items and make your menu for the week around those items, instead of you arbitrarily deciding this week I feel like having, X, Y, and Z this week, say, well, gee, chicken legs are on sale, so let's find 6 really good recipes for chicken legs, and they'll be different every night, so the family's not having the same thing every day. But just by letting that drive your menu, you're going to cut your groceries by 35%.
Wow, that's the one thing that jumped out at me when I read the book. Now, how old were your children when you were talking about this $40 a week? How old were the children back then?
My son was 5 and my daughter was 1.
5 and 1. Okay. Now, you've continued this way of living, this frugal way of living. A lot of people think, okay, what about the teenage years?
Right. Well, my son is now 22, my daughter's 17, so I have survived.
And how about them? How did the children survive through all this? Did they really notice anything, and how did you deal with some of their objections to this type of living?
Oh, yes, they noticed it. They noticed it on a daily basis.
Yeah, okay.
And I try and use as much of the stuff as a conversational, educational opportunity. So anytime there is some expenditure or some desire they have, I try and explain, well, this is how much we budgeted for it, and if we go beyond that, this is what it's going to do to our budget, or either we're going to have to cut somewhere else, or, something's going to have to give in another area. It's not like we have a bottomless pit of money that we get to spend. So I try to give them choices, instead of just saying no, I would try and give them choices. I'm like, well, if you want this, can we cut back on this? Or what of your personal money are you willing to contribute towards that? Mm-hmm. And other creative kinds of ways to try and help them see the bigger picture so that when they are on their own, they will not just automatically reach for the credit card.
So you are enjoying some luxuries too, like you said. It's not like you're just living and just living paycheck to paycheck, simple meal to simple meal. You are still enjoying some luxuries.
I do, and as we got more money throughout the time, you will find me at Starbucks now and then. It's not that I continued to live this way even though I had the money. Now, as long as I was making sure that my debts were being paid and savings was being put money, if I had a little extra money, yes, I would go and loosen my belt in a few other areas. Mm-hmm. And so that is the difference between me and some other frugal authors who could have $1 million and would still eat rice and beans.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what Dave Ramsey says on our program all the time. You need to go through that period of eating beans and rice to, anyhow, we won't go to what his advice is. I want to give some advice here because you want to get into the 11 miserly guidelines that you mentioned in the book, which is Miserly Moms, Living Well on Less in a Tough Economy. And you've got the cookbook, Healthy Meals for Less, great tasting, simple recipes under $1 a serving. Right after the break, we're going to get into these 11 miserly guidelines and open up the phone lines. Johnny, just before you came on, I was asking the question to my listeners saying, okay, fill in the blank here. I'm so cheap, I blank. And one that really stands out, Maureen called in and says she reuses her envelopes. She turns them inside out.
Great. I can't wait to talk about that one.
Have you ever heard that one?
Oh, yes. I have heard that and more.
Oh, okay.
We're using, you have to ask yourself, how much am I saving and how much time am I putting into this? That envelope is probably costing her, 1 to 2 cents, and it took her how much time? So I would rather use that time somewhere else that's going to produce more savings for me.
Okay, well, we'll get into some of these 11 miserly guidelines from the book and open up the phone lines, and we do have some copies of both books to give away, the cookbook and the Miserly Mums, at 780-430-9300 or 1-877-827-2346. Call in with maybe your tips. Maybe you have some, are you frugal? You can share some of your tips, or if you need advice, you can phone in right now and get advice on how to be more frugal, because I think we all want to save money. But if you're not really saving money, you know that you could be saving more money. What's stopping you? What's stopping you? We have advice right now with an expert. It's Johnny McCoy, author of the books Miserly Moms, Living Well on Less in a Tough Economy, and Healthy Meals for Less, great tasting, simple recipes for under $1 a serving. Your calls here on Life Talk right after this.